Let's begin. Well, thank you, Brian, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to see you. And I hope you had a good holiday break and happy 2024. I think it would be good to start off with some introductions, as I'm Claudia Ramirez. I'm the International Program Coordinator at Global Ties Sacramento, a division of World Trade Center Northern California. And Global Ties Sacramento influences positive global change and fosters mutual understanding through the facilitation of professional, cultural, and educational exchanges. Connecting international leaders with the greater Sacramento region, we provide opportunities for people from around the world to engage in meaningful dialogue, build relationships, and create a more peaceful world. On an annual basis, we host over 400 international visitors, contributing over $550,000 to the local economy through hotel stays, dining, and participation in cultural activities. And today we are joined by Mr. Brian Green, who recently participated as a home host for our Open World program. And Open World is a program that is offered through the Open World Leadership Center, and it administers the Open World program. And it's one of the most effective U.S. exchange programs for countries of the post-Soviet era. And the Open World program focuses both on assisting the Congress in its oversight responsibilities on conducting exchanges that establish lasting professional relationships between the up-and-coming leaders of Open World countries and Americans dedicating to showcasing U.S. values and democratic institutions. So Brian was one of our home hosts who participated in an Open World program where we hosted delegates from Vietnam. And it was the first year that we hosted this country. So I would love to open up the floor to Brian. And so if you could please tell us a little bit about your professional background and how you found out about the Open World program and this specific home host opportunity.
Well, good to see you too, Claudia, after a busy December. Hope you had a good new year, and nice to see you and a pleasure to work with you all again here so early in the year. Yeah, my name is Brian Green. I work for the California State Senate. I have a background in broadcast journalism and radio and media, and that's pretty much what I've done most of my life, and that's kind of what I do here for the State Senate, media services to our senators. One of my other side hustles, if you want to call it that, is I have been doing for the last couple of years presentations to visiting delegations to the Senate Office of International Relations. So probably, I would say 8 or 9 times during the year, I will join them for presentations, legislative presentations, how a bill becomes law, the unique dynamics of our state government and U.S. government to different delegations. And it's extraordinary experience to be able to answer their questions, to hear their stories, to make sure I'm up and knowledgeable on my own government and my own legislative process. So it's actually through that program that I was found out about Global Ties and your interest in meeting hosts for the delegation from Vietnam in December. Additionally, my wife and I, for the last nearly a decade, not including the COVID years, have been annual hosts to professional fellows from Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia, wherever they might be, and they come here usually in the spring for a month. They work out of the offices of the Legislative Council here at the state, and they are hosted by just personal folks. And so my wife and I have been doing that. They're here for a month, and we just provide them the homestay and coordinate with them with all the different activities. So it's kind of through those combined connections internationally that we connected with Global Ties and were able to have the experience in December.
Yeah, and that's actually how we met each other, was through one of those legislative overviews. I believe the first one that we did was back in July. And so when I had reached out to the Senate office with this request, they had name dropped you, and I said, great. And then you shared with us that you've had all that previous experience. So we're like, this is perfect. So thank you for volunteering your time.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. And the staffer with the International Relations Office had asked me about it, and I went to check with my wife and said, "Hey, are you okay with doing our hosting 3 weeks before Christmas?" And she was thrilled. So that's why we wanted to make sure we responded quickly and positively to your need.
Right, right. And thank you for the Senate Office of International Relations for connecting us with you. So one of the items that I wanted to ask you, so in preparing to welcome international guests, how do you prepare your home to create a welcoming and comfortable environment for your international guests?
Usually it comes down to just space and comfort. And typically we have a guest room upstairs. We have a 2-story room that we just customized to make sure it's clean and comfortable and available. And usually what we appreciate about the fact is because the room is upstairs and a little bit away from the craziness of the downstairs and the house, it allows the professional fellow, it allows the visitor a little bit of disconnect time. Mm-hmm. Because usually when they are on their busy days and connecting with everyone, especially if they don't speak English as their native language and they are speaking English as best they can, it can be a little exhausting. Just your brain gets tired from all of that connection and keeping up that level of charm and dignity. Right. And so we just like to give them that chance to just lock themselves and be quiet and just rest if they want it. So really, it's not too much of a process other than just how anybody would prepare for any guest. Sometimes we will, if we have knowledge in advance about food preferences, we will prepare that. Oftentimes, as soon as the visitor comes, we will go to the international market, which is not too far from our house here in Sacramento, where pretty much this store has pretty much any dietary need or any type of cuisine from pretty much any country in the world. And that way they can eat that food if they wish, or if they want to cook, they can do that. So really it's just preparing the house, cleaning up, getting things ready to have a guest for a week to a month. Right, right. Thank you for sharing that. And I do know that you hosted one delegate, Mr. Quang from Vietnam, and he spoke very highly of his homestay with you and your wife. So something I wanted to ask is, can you share a memorable experience or moment from this visit that had a significant impact on both you and the visitor, or vice versa? Well, I will say it was wonderful hosting Quang. He was an incredible man and has a fascinating history, personal history as well as career history. Very concerned about the world, and he would often wake up at 6 a.m. as we're getting up, having watched a YouTube or watched something on his phone, say, for example, about what was going on in the Middle East or what was going on in Ukraine, and ready to engage in a dialogue and debate as the sun was coming up about international issues. So that was fun. So he just, it was a busy week, and so there wasn't a lot of downtime at the house, but we had a wonderful time just chatting with him, getting to know him, hearing his stories about his family, and just even the car rides and the opportunities we had just to connect with him personally, and making sure he got rest and just making sure he took care of himself for the week. Absolutely. I think what I loved in this whole experience was just hearing the stories from the different delegates about their own experiences, their history and their perspective on their country, their history and perspective on the not so always positive connections from the past between our country and Vietnam. Two interesting random experiences, but it just touches to me on how small of a world we live in, you could say. On the way to San Francisco that one day, the group in the back, they were saying, I asked, does anybody want to listen to any music while we're driving? And one of them said, do you like country music? And I said, yeah, I like some country music. We can find a country music channel, anything you guys like. So there was some conversation in the back, and they were looking up names, and somebody said, John Denver. And I said, John Denver? Wow, you guys love John Denver? I've been listening to John Denver since I was, in junior high school. So I found the John Denver channel. And they were all excited to hear John Denver. So we're driving along and everyone in the car is singing, "Take me home, country roads." And it was just kind of fun that, here's an artist I've been listening to all my life. And it's just amazing how they are influenced by that music. And then coming home, one of the delegates asked if they could listen to some Christmas music. And I said, well, okay, absolutely. So I found a Christmas channel and some of the old stuff, Perry Como and Bing Crosby and all this. And we're singing along on Op Pups, a version of Silent Night. And all of a sudden, everyone in the back of the car, this 5 or 6 people we had, all started singing Silent Night. And I'm singing too. And I'm just thinking, here we have the middle-aged American from California and all of these distinguished visitors from Vietnam, all singing this, American European Christmas carol. And it just reminded me, for all of our differences, for all of our what makes us unique culturally, there's this bond of connection and this bond of just mutual love and respect at this time of year. So it just that little slice of a moment that just made me think, wow, this is incredible. That this little moment is what these experiences are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for you, you had a rather unique experience because not only were you a home host to your delegate that you hosted, but you also served as a professional resource. You gave the group a California legislative overview, and you were actively participating throughout the program. You acted as a cultural guide. In some ways, you were sort of a dad to the group. So I know that there were some moments that were shared during the weekend. But that will bring me to my next question. And then I wanted to share a photo as well. Were there any specific activities or traditions you shared with your international guests that showcased our local community?
I'm trying to think of something about local community. I guess probably the most significant thing next to going to San Francisco was the trip that we took up into the Gold Country the day before, just east of Sacramento, the foothills, the Sierra foothills, and the small towns. And they really seem to love that. We went to a place called Indian Grinding Rock. It's a California state park, and it is just an area where Native Americans, even to this day, still have celebrations and host events. And it's very historic in terms of just the history of the Native American communities in that area. And they loved that. And they loved going on the mine tour. So they just loved they didn't necessarily need bells and whistles. They just loved the cultural connection. And so I think that, and just the driving through Sacramento on the way to downtown, being able to just see the local community. We as you remember, we did that tour of the holiday lights down at Midtown Sacramento, and they seemed to love that. So it was just those little small touches of connection that they seem to really love, just to be able to see how we live as Americans and to find the commonalities. But I think in particular, the trip to the Gold Country was a real slice of life for them that they seem to really enjoy.
I absolutely agree with you because I think it's something that they weren't really aware of something that we had in Sacramento. And for many of the delegates, it was their first time coming to the United States. I think out of the 5 of them, 4 of them, it was their first time coming to the US. And so from what I heard from them, they said that their experience in Gold Country was just, really magical, and seeing all the fall foliage and having that opportunity to bond with one another was very special. And then, of course, the day trip to San Francisco, visiting the iconic Golden Gate Bridge and having the opportunity to spend time with them and walk through the city was very, 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 very nice. And I actually wanted to share a few photos from that day, which feels like some time ago.
It does. It seems like forever ago, doesn't it? And it was only like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. So Brian, I, and my fiance Jordan had volunteered to take the group to San Francisco for the day. And here's a photo of us in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Everyone had the opportunity to get out and take their Instagram or Facebook photos. So that was a lot of fun. And then we also took the group over to Fisherman's Wharf I mean, they were just such a delight and such an easygoing group, and it was very easy to have conversations with them. It was like hanging out with old friends, even though we didn't really know each other.
Yes, and I'll say, because San Francisco's so iconic and the Golden Gate Bridge is so iconic to people all over the world, what I love is taking them the highway, as you remember, north of the bridge and coming down Highway 1. And just as you come over the hill and the spires of the bridge are right there before you even come close to it. And it's always so fun to just hear the chatter in the car, and then all of a sudden somebody gets their first glimpse of the bridge and like they're
Yeah,
seeing the Taj Mahal, So it's,
yeah,
I think we live and breathe this world, but we forget that it is amazing to the rest of the world. So it's fun to just see our world through their eyes.
absolutely. And it's kind of reliving it all over again, that excitement. Or sometimes we can get a little bit more excited for the visitors because, we're excited that, oh, this is your first time. And then it's really interesting to see their process and kind of digesting everything in, and then reflecting on a few days later of their appreciation of the visit. Yeah, it
Yes.
was very special. And thank you again for hosting the group for the weekend. So I'm going to stop sharing. And so my next question for you, Brian, is what benefits have you personally gained from participating in this open world program?
Well, I think personally, as is often the case when you think of a country or think of individuals or a population in a country, maybe my impressions were informed by our own country's history and perspective of of the country and its communities and culture. And I think we just, I guess it would be maybe an exaggeration to say we gained this whole new perspective of Vietnam. I mean, obviously it's a trading country, it's a forward thinking country, it's come into the new millennium, pretty much like the others. But I think there's still a lot of culture and perspective that's historical and not present, if you understand what I'm saying. So I think just to be able to listen to their stories, listen to their own understanding of our country, and their own history, the knowledge of their history. One of the gentlemen that we was traveling with had this incredible knowledge of a history of his own country, and how the Ottomans attacked Vietnam in the 12th century, and this happened. He went through the entire timeline of history, and I'm just like, this is incredible. Most Americans don't know beyond the decade they were born about the history of their own country. We're very short-sighted in some of our history and perspective. But he had so much knowledge, and their desire to create ties with our country, and just the willingness to live in the moment and not worry too much about the past or the past challenges, and they were as welcoming to us as we are to them. And I think, as I've said many times, particularly the perspective of even hosting fellows from Eastern Europe, is that it just puts a name and a face to a country and a part of the world. So you hear about something going on in a particular part of the world, you read it in the newspaper and you think, oh, that's tragic, or oh, that's interesting. But if you know somebody who's from there, if you know somebody who's living there and existing there, it makes it more personal. And I think if we all had that approach and thought and perspective about our world, it would just make it a better place. Not to sound too lofty about this, but really it makes the world much smaller and more intimate, and just makes us have some more respect and understanding and empathy for other parts of the world. When you know somebody from there, when you care about somebody who's living there, whose family is affected, or who is living experiences that maybe you only read about in headlines.
Absolutely. And it's a way to kind of humanize international affairs in a more personable way. So this is a little bit more of a broader question to kind of touch on your overall experience hosting international groups in the last decade. But how has hosting, and you already touched on this, but how has hosting international delegates influenced your perspectives on different cultures and world affairs?
I think it has brought some humility if you want to say, to my own attitudes as an American and as a Californian, and realizing that many of these international delegations, these international fellows, you know, they have these curriculum vitae, these resumes that are 4 pages long. They speak 4 languages, one of which is English. They have done, you know, and they study to make themselves more competitive in the world that they're doing. They become fluent in these languages. Some of them have 2 or 3 degrees, a couple of master's degrees, a PhD. The effort that they have taken with less means and less freedoms than we have in our own country to aspire and to rise and do what they're doing. Their respect for gender diversity, their respect for cultural diversity sometimes is greater than ours. So I think we sometimes grow up in a bubble in this country of we're this great America, and we do all these great things and technologically advanced and all, which, yes, that's true. But if we think about where other cultures and other communities and other individuals from other parts of the world, where they have reached in their world and what they are aspiring to, and sometimes the challenges that they've had to reach that point, it's humbling. It's just a deeper respect and affection for the world that they live in, and understanding that we have a lot to learn from them as much as they might take from and learn from us.
Absolutely. And that actually is a perfect segue to my next question. It's a little bit more of a macro question, but in what ways do you believe hosting international delegates contributes to building bridges between communities and fostering diplomatic relations?
I think just the one-on-one time, just the sharing, the getting up in the morning, how you make coffee, what you do in the morning, the challenges we have in our daily lives. I think it just goes beyond the history books, the textbooks, the cultural films, the cultural presentations and receptions, just the day-to-day routine of learning about each other, being in a moment of drama with each other. Whoops, I lost my phone, or whoops, the car won't start, or dealing with people's pets. You know, all these little things that just help create a cultural bridge. It's like, okay, well, here's how the Americans live, but here's really how Americans live. And you know, it perhaps diminishes stereotypes on their end, and it definitely diminishes stereotypes on our end. You know, they have families, they connect. Our desires, our priorities, our hopes are not that different. If you pull away the cultural boundaries, they're not that different between country and between individuals.
Right, right. And I think considering everything in the world right now, we need more of those human interactions. I just wanted to share a photo with you and your delegate that you've hosted, if I may. Let's see. So Brian, can you share a little bit more about this photo and when it was taken?
Yes, yeah, that photo was taken the first morning that was it the following morning, I guess, after they arrived?
Yeah, it was morning on Friday.
Yeah, on Friday, before you had your first orientation meeting with them. And just realized we hadn't had a photo together, Kwong and I. And right about that time, Kwong was sharing photos with me and the other gentleman, who I think his name was also Kwong. They, of course, as you know, are very much involved in reception and diplomatic connection when distinguished visitors arrive from other countries to their country. So both of them were showing me photos of the last time President Biden and Secretary of State Blinken were in Vietnam, and the different. So you know, they're showing me these photos that they were just eyewitnesses 20 feet away from these diplomatic missions. So it was just a moment, just a slice of life there, having coffee, taking a picture of them. It's like, well, we're sitting here together, because who knows when's the next time we'll be sitting next to each other between now and next week. Here's just a photo of the two of us. So that was just that moment. But you know, like I said, we just met him 12 hours before, but already feeling a connection and already learning so much about him and his country and his cohorts as part of the delegation. So that's what that photo was in the coffee shop. Oh, and the other thing I will add too is that he is an expert on coffee making, and he gave me all sorts of different coffees and ways to make instant coffee, which tastes 10 times better than anything we Americans have. So just at home, just in the morning getting ready, he was making me more sophisticated in my coffee selection and preparation. So
That's a
yeah.
really interesting story. And it's funny because I do know he took the lead on cooking the final
Yes.
food for everybody.
Yes.
He was very, very, very presented on that. And I mean, the meal was amazing and
Yes.
was incredibly gracious, and it was just a very special moment.
Well, and he got us into having faux soup at 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning instead of cereal or eggs or something. So I'd get ready, come into the kitchen, and he's already heating up water. And here's your soup. Here's your faux soup. Okay, I'll have something I wouldn't normally have for breakfast. Hey, I'm going to try it. It was great. And it was just a fellowship moment. But then he's already brewing hot water and he's got little filters for making coffee. And he gave me a couple of packs of Vietnamese coffee, and just like, this is fabulous. So.
And it's really interesting how you're hosting these individuals in your home and you end up being hosted by them.
And I think that actually brings up another point, Claudia, is that sometimes you have to step back and be receptive, and let them. There's this tendency to, oh no, you don't have to do that. Oh no, you don't have to take care of that. But step back and let them be generous. And even just one. I remember several years ago, one of the young ladies from Ukraine, she made borscht, and I'm not a big fan of beets. But I thought, you know what, here she is. She wants to make borscht. And she said, you know what, I'll put enough sour cream in it that it will dilute the taste of the beets. And I said, okay, we're on. So it was the most delicious thing I've ever had. And I don't know if I'll ever have borscht again, but to have a Ukrainian representative, make me borscht in my own home, that's great. So it's those little opportunities for them to give that sometimes it's our response to be the host. Go, no, don't have to do that. We'll take care of it. But if you step back and let them kind of minister to you, then that's also a wonderful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that brings me to my final question. And what is something you recommend to future home hosts interested in taking part in this program?
I would say, well, first I'll preface that by just saying I appreciate all of you and your hard work and your really boots on the ground efforts to make this happen. It was a lot of activity, a lot of schedule in 1 week. And if you and Tessa and everyone else hadn't been on top of it, who knows what could have happened. And just your generosity in providing and making sure we were doing fine just was really helpful. Even though everything went smoothly, just to know you guys had our back, as you'd say, was great. I think that the best advice I would give to a homestay or a home host, particularly somebody who's doing it for the first time, is just leave your preconceived notions at the door. Prepare your home, prepare yourself as you would for any other guest that comes to visit, but just open yourself up to anything. Schedules are great, routine itineraries are great, but just leave some time for spontaneity, leave some time, and make sure that your guest has the chance to disconnect from your world and let them relax in their world, just to have some privacy and some alone time and some chance to decompress for the next day or for the next time. Just give them that feeling of being at a home, even though that's not their home. They may be homesick, but just give them that space to be who they are in the midst of all the other routine and itinerary and reception that they're getting during the day.
Yeah.
And just knowing that they can trust you, that no matter where they are, you'll come find them. No matter what's going on, you'll have their back.
Absolutely. And we definitely felt that with your presence throughout the entire program. So thank you.
It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun. That's the other thing. It was fun. Just have a good time,
Exactly. And I know after everyone's visit, and especially after the opening dinner, I went home that night kind of emotional and just really felt the appreciation and love from everybody. And during the closing dinner, the delegates sang us Merry Christmas in English. So that was really special. And it was just a very special, intimate moment that was all shared with us and members of our community and with these international visitors. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with Brian with us today. And, you know, I hope we can continue to work with you in the future.
Indeed, indeed. No, it was really a pleasure to work with you, all of you. It's been just so, you're just so gracious and helpful, and it's a pleasure to partner with you. So I hope this will not be the last time, and hope we can do it again soon.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's gonna conclude our interview for today.